Why, hello there. It is me again. So, I'm still using the same mic, but the quality should be better, I think. Finally using the headset. Now, let us begin on an adventure. The Great Escape, Chapter 3. Sans was speechless and, if he was being quite honest with himself, more than a little out of his depth. After all, he never attempted to teleport, he wasn't guiding. It was a ludicrous idea to begin with. Why would he even consider it? And yet, if such a thing was possible, well, it'd be awesome. One can only take so much infinite blackness, after all. Plus, Sirius certainly seemed to think this weird side-along shtick could be done for some reason. Sans, after recovering his voice, though he still sounded somewhere between hope and shocked, just had to ask, how would that even work? Well, it's like you'd be the motorbike and The skeleton cut off with a distinct, you're not helping. Look. So Sirius had to think of a more direct way to explain. I guess you cast a spell and provide the power when I steer. You're driving me up the wall, man. I'm asking how that's done. Oh. Well. Sorry, I was just thinking. With apparating, the caster basically tries to apparate with no destination in mind, so the spell follows the direction of the other. Would passenger be accurate? The last bit was said mostly to himself, but Sans heard enough. General Dea, when applied to his own method of teleportation, actually seemed possible. Sirius had stopped his incessant pacing in favor of explaining his plan, but the rest of his energy is still urgently not dissipated yet. He was basically vibrating in place, eagerly awaiting a verdict. Sans was feeling uncharacteristically giddy. Oh yes, a new toy to play with. Given this new option, long-faded hope arising anew. He tried to quash it, to approach the situation with scientific detachment. Win, he told himself. No, so as to not be crushed if it all crumbles to pieces. Win, he told himself firmly. Win, it all crumbles to pieces. But it is impossible now to beat back his treacherous hope, now with the idea shining so clear and tempting and possible in his mind. I can't believe I'm letting myself do this. Sans grumbled to himself, but it was a half-hearted grumble. At best. After reviewing and theorizing, he had to finally acknowledge that it could work. Ha ha! Yes! Sirius laughed, celebrating his breakthrough with a fist bump and a stupid little dance. Oh yeah, got this in the bag. You might want to save the celebrations for after. Don't be such a spoil sport, Sans! Sirius tried to frown at the short skeleton, but the effect was somewhat lost since his eyes were still lit up with excitement. The fake frown was predictably replaced by a white smile as he joked, You do have a funny bone, right? That remark prompted another rather interesting grin. He immediately recalled who he had just punned. If Sirius had learned one thing about Sans, it was that the skeleton and puns went hand in hand. I'd like to think I'm pretty humorous, but to be honest, I might be losing my touch. At least you're around too. Sans popped off his left hand with his right and held it out to the now astonished wizard. Lend me a hand. Sirius stood gobsmacked before recalling the observable observation. Puns went hand in hand with this skeleton. He reached out, but aborted his plan to poke it when the fingers wiggled at him. Okay, I know you're a skeleton, but that's a bit creepy. Sans put his limb back. With a grin and feigned offense, he whined, How hurtful! You're tearing me apart! Seems to me that's what you were doing, the wizard replied, rolling his eyes. And regardless, we're getting off topic. We can do this, right? You said it could work. Theoretically, but I want to test it before trying to shortcut out of here. Sirius shrugged off his own brown jacket and dropped out of their feet before grabbing Sam's bony shoulder in response. Fine by me. The jacket will be a reference point and I'll focus on somewhere else here in the void. Good luck with that. Sans drew up his magic, cueing it as if he was going to make a shortcut but keeping his mind meticulously blank. The flow of his magic through Sirius' hand, his arm, and his soul. Interestingly enough, Sirius's large, dense, and heart-shaped collective magic was mostly orange with a distinct, vibrant purple border. Bravery and perseverance, then. It was somewhat difficult to blend his own blue-gold magic with another two-toned soul, but he managed it. Shortcut too cold, and the pair of them vanished. They reappeared somewhere else in the void, presumably. It was impossible to tell, at least until it spotted the crumpled jacket several meters away. Oh, the skeleton shook himself, noticing a few fading whips and variety colors curling around them. So, you can let go now, Sirius. Sirius didn't let go. Sirius? No! Come on, Sans! Let's make a great escape! No time like the present, they say. They say a lot of things. Acknowledged, but I'm not afraid. I'm afraid the point still stands, Rattles. Alright. Did you just call me Rattles? No, wait, better yet. Did I just answer to Rattles? That'd be yes, on both accounts. Stars, I'm becoming as crazy as you. Thank you, Rattles. Now are you ready to take the jump back to reality? No time like the present, indeed. Just stay focused, or we might end up in your world's dark ages or something. Right, sir! That mock salute doesn't inspire confidence. Just stay focused, I know! You did say that literally 5 minutes, like seconds ago, and don't worry, I will. There are people I care about, and I do not plan on leaving them behind because my attention span was lacking. Sans gathered his magic again, readying another shortcut that shut up Sirius up pretty quickly. And basically curled his magic through Sirius' soul and shortcut! They winked back. Well, Sans winked back to an assistant alone. Sirius was no longer clinging to him, instead sprawled limply a short distance away. He wasn't alone at all, he was with 2 other people. For some reason, and a swarm of creepy flying demon things. Said demon things were thankfully being held off by some sort of white glowing stag thing standing on the far shore. So that's nice. Stag thing cantered on the water, brightening each step until it was difficult to look at. Ripples of white light played across the lake's surface, but the demon things only shifted slightly, moving away from the 3 collapsed humans, but still pretty keen on staying. Sans didn't like the way they were clustering closer to him, and soon didn't like the sudden cold, heavy feeling dragging at his soul. It was just so cold. He staggered as memories of red, and an ache of deep ache in his chest swept him away from the side. A snowstorm, a red scarf, and then he was standing again in that cursed gold hallway, listening for footsteps in the inevitable. Useless! He kept leaving the same days, and it hurt because he couldn't tell if they were looping memories or looping timelines. Did it matter? Nothing mattered. Thing felt a black loneliness and void, only to be jerked back to the endless repeating genocide, to his brother's voice, weak but dying, but still so trusting. Suddenly the lake was back, dark and freezing, but still an infinite improvement. Another wave of light filled his vision, knocking back some of the demon things that had been drifting closer. The light didn't look particularly threatening. Stars, it felt comforting when it washed over him, but whatever it was scattered the demon things into the sky and out of sight. Still and steady, Sans took a few wavering steps towards Sirius and sat down next to him with a soft thud. He looked way paler than Sans remembered. Other than that, though, he and the other humans, a boy with unruly black hair and a girl with brown curls. Seemed fine. After a moment for the vigilance, the stag thing went back across the length before dispersing into misty threads of quickly fading light. Well, I'd say this wasn't quite where Sirius was hoping to end up. If he was aiming to reappear in the middle of a group of evil flying cloak demons, then I'll really question that decision. If he had to guess, he'd say that Sirius's desired destination had been overridden by whatever had pulled from the other end of the shortcut. Still, seeing as the wizard was found passed out on arrival, not to mention that he was wearing different clothes and overall just looked slightly different, Sans figured somehow Sirius was to blame. That whatever it was had felt like Sirius himself after all, so it's possible they ended up in the semi-recent past with the current past Sirius' soul being the whatever it was. Not, I can't. Alright, sorry for that. Now, where were we? Whatever it was, or maybe Sirius had just messed up and Sans imagined the odd pole. Either way, Sirius was to blame. Sirius was about to try to wake him up, but he felt a chill down his spine. Response was to simply pull his hood up, huddling it down for warmth. It took a moment to notice the exact same sensation. He immediately switched to high alert, crouching and scanning the sky for the cause for returning demon things, presumably, and there! Dark shifting shapes began to take form over the tree tops. It was easy to draw. Flickers of red and gold and the sounds of distant voices began to echo along his skull as the cold grew more intense. It was easy to draw the connection. The demon things obviously caused more than just dropping temperatures. Sans had no intention of letting them drag up his memories again. He pushed himself to his feet, dusting himself off before nonchalantly stuffing his hands in his pockets. Most of the demon things, but not all, he noticed with slight annoyance, were coming from one direction. That just meant he'd had to use slightly more force than he first thought. Sans glared at them, and that sharp chime rang out over the lake as his left eye socket, filled with pure magic. Its flickering blue and gold, the only light visible. There's a whoosh, whoosh of displaced air. With just a thought, he summoned 4 Gaster Blasters. Really, he couldn't resist. Do you want to have a bad time? The demon things continued to drift closer, so either they didn't understand the threat he posed or they didn't care. Sans shrugged. Didn't matter at this point. His weapons charged in an instant, cascades of sparks escaping from between their sharp teeth. He didn't hesitate. Sound rumbled through the air, deep and powerful. The darkness was shattered by overwhelming light. Blast shook the nearby trees and pushed waves of water away from the shore. It's pretty safe to say there wouldn't be much left of those demon things. Well, not much beyond whatever the magical equivalent is for a smear and maybe a few tattered scraps of a black cloak. Sans blinked twice, clearing his vision with a pulse of magic and whistled under his non-existent breath. That might have been overkill. With a thud and a pained moan from behind him, he spun around, one charge blaster appearing over his shoulder just in case. Something at the edge of the forest stumbled out onto the shore, likely blinded and disoriented by Sans' early attack, followed by something floated crookedly on the air. It was another human. Well, a human in what seemed to be another flying gurney? Sans could barely make out the shape of someone on the gurney and marveled at the number of randomly unconscious people that were in the immediate vicinity. The not knocked out human, a man, he noticed, wore billowing black robes that made his bumbling about vaguely reminiscent of a drunk, overgrown bat. He was about to offer assistance when he recalled Sirius's first reaction to meeting him. Perhaps it was best to make himself scarce. One shortcut later, Sans was safely out of the way, mostly. The human was now standing very still, rubbing furiously at his eyes with a free hand, while the other flicked the stick it held onto the ground. When the floating gurney lowered itself, following the gesture, Sans belatedly realized that the stick must be a wand. It was obvious, really. He shied himself for not making the connection sooner. A few hard blinks later, and the human Sans decided to refer to him as Nose until further notice, after his most prominent facial feature was suspiciously eyeing the shoreline, even turning to scan the trees. Eventually, Nose turned his attention to the three unconscious people. Thankfully, Sans's caution of spawning a blaster was unnecessary. Nose conjured another three gurneys and carefully levitated the two kids and Sirius onto them, being surprisingly gentle with the boy and girl and markedly less so with Sirius, going as far as to bind and gag them. But since he didn't actually hurt Sirius, Sans decided he had it panned out. He worked quickly and efficiently, but didn't loosen his wound-up posture. Sans casting several long and readable glances at the spot where the skeleton had stood minutes earlier before watching the surrounding forest with noticeable unease. Once all four unexplained unconscious humans had been loaded onto the stretchers, Nose would swish his wand in their direction with a flourishing flick and they all just floated into the air. Must be harder for human wizards to fly bodies in gurneys for some reason, since otherwise Sans didn't see the point of conjuring them. Or maybe wizards just didn't think stuff through very much. Whatever. He set aside his musings on wizards and logic, or more to the point, their lack thereof, when Nose began making his way back. Needless to say, the blat-like wonder was bringing him back more than he thought. An additional sneaky skeleton followed in the trees. After all, that was Sans' friend. New friend. Yo, serious. Not to be serious and all that, but why you hanging out with Nose? Not to mention the only person he even knows in this world being carted off on one of the stretchers. There's no way Sans was going to lose track of him. And that is all. So, that was chapter 4. No, 3. This is my 4th video, though. I'll see you next time. Sorry for neglecting this. Adios.